What's up guys, ATCG here. Welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're doing an update on the Harpy deck, and I think it's finally time we started doing those MR5 updated versions because we're basically weeks away from Master Rule 5, so I think it's time to be prepared to see these decks that are going to get a huge boost from the new rule change. And Harpies I think is one of them because they only have one link monster and you don't really want to commit a lot of monsters for your link plays, so being able to Xyz summon anywhere in your main monster zone will be actually a huge help for the deck. So I'm going to show you exactly how the deck is manually going to be played going into the Master Rule revision. So before we begin, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, like the video if you enjoy it, and in case you're wondering why I'm using the OCG version of the cards for the deck profile, I just like them more because of course they're uncensored. So now, without further ado, let's begin. So we start with monsters. We have 3 copies of Harpy Channeler. Basically, you tutor out any Harpy you want from the deck by discarding a Harpy card. You get to all your plays with her. She's basically a play you want to go to every single game, so you try to get her as fast as possible because she gives you all the plays you need depending on your matchup. 3 Harpy Perfumer. On summon, she searches any spell or trap that lists Harpy Lady Sisters. She's pretty good because if you summon her with Channeler and then you can get to an Elegant Egotist, then basically you can get 3 monsters on the field, so it will be a really good first turn play. And there's also another reason why I think getting 3 monsters on the field is really important. I will show it to you a little bit later, but for now just keep in mind that this card searches only spells that list Harpy Lady Sisters. Unfortunately not Harpy. That will be really good because you could search Harpy's Featherstorm, but alas, this is what you can do with this card. 3 Harpy Harpist. The reason you max out on Harpist is because he's the free discard for not only Channeler, but basically any card you have. So you in the end phase, if she's sent to the graveyard, you get to search a Harpy with 1500 or less attack. So you want to always have her in your hand for those discard effects. And I think playing those kind of discard effects aside from Channeler is actually really good for the deck, because if you don't have the most optimal hand, then you can get to it by discarding cards. So that's why Harpist, along with Hysteric Sign, are cards you want to get to the grave as fast as possible. And for the one-offs, we play 1 Harpy Dancer. She combos out with your link because you can bounce a Harpy back to your hand and extra normal summon, and Conductor says that if you bounce a Harpy, then you can bounce one of your opponent's special summon monsters, so you can deal with problematic monsters by using Dancer. 1 Harpy Queen, just 1, because Hunting Ground is not the best card anymore. It's only good against situational matchups, so you don't want to break on either Queen or Hunting Ground. There are a ton of ways to search it, so I think if the matchup requires it, then you have a lot of ways to get to it as fast as possible. And if you don't want it against the matchup, it's best not to see it, because in a deck like this, you cannot afford to have dead cards in your hand. 1 Harpy Oracle. This is a really good card to get to during the late game or with play. I'm going to show you that's pretty much a win button against some decks, because when she's summoned during the end phase, you will get back a card from your grave that lists Harpy Lady Sisters. So it's basically a Skarm from your grave. And if you have a level 5 or higher Harpy, you can special summon her from the hand, and I also have a way to tutor out her second effect as long as Perfumer's effect, because I forgot to mention, Perfumer searches 2 cards if you have a level 5 or higher Harpy when you summon her. And now for the Elegant Egotist targets, we play 1 Cyber Harpy Lady and 1 Original Harpy Lady, and the Original Harpy Lady is the reason you can use the secondary effects of both your Perfumer and your Oracle, because you can summon Imduck with her because she's a vanilla, and once you have a dragon on the field, Channeler becomes level 7, so if you have Imduck and Channeler and use Channeler's effect to get our Perfumer, then you can get 2 searches with your Perfumer. And the win condition, the standard win condition, is Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. You can get this out with multiple ways, and if you can back this up with either a Utopia or a trap, some trap cards, then it's pretty much going to be game against most decks, because wind is not the most common attribute, so your opponent is not going to be able to summon wind monsters. And the way you go to it is with either Ties of the Brethren or your Swallow's Nest. And if you have Ties of the Brethren with your Harpy Channeler, then you can summon a Utopia before you bring Barrier Statue out, so you can block any attacks against it. Because you can get 3 monsters on the field with 2 of them, you will summon Utopia, and then you will still have a target for your Ties of the Brethren, and it says you can also summon for the rest of this turn, so you're good to go to get to your Barrier Statue this way. Now let's go to the spells. The best spell in the deck, 3 Hysteric Sign. The graveyard effect is actually what makes this card really good. If you have this in your hand, sometimes you don't even want to activate the effect to search your Egotist. You want to keep it in your hand so you can discard it, or you can set it to pop it with your Hunting Ground to get the grave effect, which if it goes to the grave by field or hand, Then during the end phase, you can search 3 Harpy cards with different names on your deck, which is absolutely incredible. I played 2 Elegant Egotist. In the past, I was running 3, but the more I tested the deck, I felt like this actually was the brick of the deck, because yes, it gives you more monsters on the field, but this was only better when you actually needed to pop monsters with Hunting Ground. It's not as relevant right now, and it's searchable with so many ways, so I think just 2 is perfectly fine. I still will not play 1, because I do have 2 targets in the deck and I still need to be able to use the rank force. And for the one of Harpy cards, we have 1 Mirror Split, because this card gives you the Harpy you need. Sometimes you just need to search this with your Perfumer and then have it on the board. If your opponent deals with your Perfumer, then you will get a Channeler from your deck, and it makes your opponent play weirdly. And if they pop this to make sure you don't get 1 from the deck, then the second effect will trigger and it will special summon 1 from the grave, so it's a win-win for you no matter what happens. And 1 Hunting Ground, like I said, you don't want to brick on it. Some matchups it's completely useless against, so that's why you just need to have it for the searchable option. You have so many ways to search it, so if you're playing against a deck like Subter or Altergeist, then you have access to it whenever you want. Now for the generic spells, 3 Ties of the Brethren, pretty good card. Gives you Perfumer, gives you Oracle from the deck, and of course gives you the Barrier Statue, so you can lock your opponent and try to outgrind them from this point. And of course your whole deck is win, so it's not like it's going to lock you out from anything. 3 Super Poly. I mentioned like discard cards are really important for the deck, and if you think about all the discard cards in the game, then the first one that's going to come to your mind is of course Super Poly, because it's so powerful. You can use this as disruption, you can use this offensively, and if you discard Harpies or your sign, then you can get to your plays, so it's not like that discard hurts you. It actually helps you a lot in this deck. I play a lot more cards that help you discard from your hand, so you can get to the cards you need. I play 1 Swallow's Nest. I don't want to brick on this card a lot, because it gives you access to the Harpy you need or your Barrier Statue, but if you already have your Channeler, if you already have your Ties with the Brethren, it's not the best card. It also helps you play around some targeting cards like Impermanence, like Crackdown. It's not the worst card in the deck, but it's not the best card either, so that's why I think just 1 is perfectly fine. And 1 Upstart, because this is the only draw card you can run in this deck, because you cannot run either Desires or Extravagance. Desires, you have a lot of 1-ups in the deck. You can technically run Desires if you don't want to rely too much on your Barrier Statue, but I still think you should not do it. And Extravagance, of course, the extra deck is really important, because the extra deck is the win condition of the deck. And for the traps, the first one is the best card in the deck. This card is absolutely incredible, because Featherstorm negates all monster effects your opponent has for the entire turn. You can activate this from the hand if you have a Harpy on the field. Unfortunately, you cannot use the last effect. If your opponent pops it, you will search your Feather Duster. Maybe, hopefully, sometime we will be able to do that, but for now it's still a really good card. And of course, it's searchable with your Hysteric Sign, and of course Trap Trick, because I also have Trap Trick in the deck. This is how important this card is. Play 3 Dinomischus. It's basically the updated Karma Cut. You need, like I said, you need cards to discard cards, and if you want to be able to go first consistently with a deck like this, where it doesn't have a lot of big monsters, then you want to be able to protect your plays with something, especially your Barrier Statue. So that's why Dinomischus is really good, because you can just banish your opponent's normal summon monster that tries to run over your statue. And of course, you will also proc your Hysteric Sign and your Harpist as well. Following the same logic is 2 copies of Phoenix Wing Windblast. Pretty good. It's also good against backrow decks, while your Dinomischus is not really that good, because if you're just able to bounce an opponent's backrow, then you will get them 1 turn behind. So if your opponent sets just 3 or 4 back rows, then Dinomischus is pretty much dead, because it only targets face-up cards, so that's why Windblast is there. And all of the traps I showed you, you can access them with Trap Trick. You don't want to brick on Trap Trick a lot, because you only have 3 targets for it. So I think 2 is perfectly fine, and most likely you will be going for your Featherstorm if your opponent tries to go off, or if your opponent is trying to outgrind you and to have a Hysteric Sign you want to send to the grave, then you will go for one of your Disruption traps. Let's go to the extra deck. We have 1 Harpy Conductor. Harpy Conductor is the reason the deck could actually play under Master Rule 4, but now with Master Rule 5 it's not the most important card. Her effect is okay. You can protect your Harpies by battle or destruction, by card effect, by destroying one of your back row, so it's really good if your opponent tries to get rid of your Harpies, then you can send a Hysteric Sign to the grave to get a Surge. And she also has a second effect to combo with Dancer, like I said, to bounce an opponent's special summon monster. 1 Imdak for the normal Harpy play, because it's a dragon, and when a dragon is on the field, Harpy Channeler becomes level 7, so you can proc the secondary effects of your Harpy Perfumer Oracle without needing to run the bricks of Harpy's Pet Dragon and Harpy Lady Sisters. And 1 Borrelsword, because this deck can spam a lot of monsters very easily, so you can OTK with Borrelsword. Now for the Xyz monsters, one Harpy's Pet Phantasmal Dragon. This card against some decks is actually a win button, because if your opponent has 6,000 or less life points and you know that they're playing a deck that doesn't have an out to discard, then you can just slam it, attack them directly for 3 turns, and basically win this way. Tornado Dragon, you use this mostly to pop your own cards, ironically, because you want to pop your Hysteric Signs, you want to pop your Split Mirrors, you want to be able to get that advantage going. But if you're playing against a backrow deck, Tornado Dragon is actually a really good card. A better card than Tornado against backrow decks is Lightning Chidori, because it gives you an out 2 cards. On summon, it will send a set card back to the bottom of the deck, and by detaching a material, you bounce a face-up card your opponent back to the top of the deck, so it puts them 1 turn behind, and also, well, deals with a back row. And both these monsters are win monsters, which is actually important, because you can summon them under your barrier statue. One Dugares, you want to summon this if you have already another Harpy on the field, so if you start with Channeler and go Perfumer and get Egotist, then you have 3 monsters and you have a sign in your hand, then you won't be able to discard that sign. Yes, it skips your next draw phase, but if you are able to resolve your sign, then that gives you 3 cards, so you don't really mind if you're losing 1 card during the next turn, because you probably already have everything you need. One Abyss Dweller, because again, there are some matchups that Abyss Dweller insta-wins, like Burning Abyss, like Shadows or Spirals. Your opponent won't be able to do much under Abyss Dweller, so you can stall a turn to get your turn back to be able to go for game during the next turn. Same reason, one Bagooska. The matchups Dweller doesn't deal with, usually Bagooska deals with, so that's why Bagooska is here against decks like Dinosaurs when they can't do anything if they can't use their monster effects and they don't have a really consistent way of dealing with Bagooska. Play the Utopia package, but not the Utopia package you think of. I do not play Double or Nothing like you probably already seen, because it's not in the main deck. I play Utopia and Utopia the Lightning because, like I said, you want to be able to protect your barrier statue with Utopia if you have 3 monsters on the field, because the go-to thing that your opponent will do when you... and your barrier statue will try to normal summon something and try to run it over, so that's why Utopia is good, to be able to block that attack. And Utopia the Lightning is here against some cards like Crystal Wing or 38, where you want to be able to get rid of, because when you attack, they won't be able to use their boosting effects, and you will be able to deal with them by making Utopia the Lightning 5,000. And the reason I do not run Double or Nothing is because when you have this card in your deck, you kind of tunnel vision on it and you try to win with it every single game, and your opponent stops it because you don't have anything good to protect it, so then you pretty much lost your entire play to try to do a very lackluster OTK. For the fusion for Super Poly, we have 1 Star Venom, pretty much the go-to one. If you think of any deck that can summon Darks, then you can summon Star Venom. You can also run the new Predaplan that needs 3 Darks, but I think 3 Darks is a little bit overkill. You're asking for way too much to fuse a 3 Darks on your opponent's field, so I think Star Venom is pretty good. 1 Dragostapelia for all the decks that use fusions. If you have another Dark, then you can do Dragostapelia, and also gives you a disruption. 1 Earth Golem. Earth Golem is basically the new Violet Chimera, because Violet Chimera is also good against Salamangreats, but if your opponent playing against any Cyberse decks, then Earth Golem will be able to summon itself with Super Poly, because it needs a Cyberse monster and a Link monster, which is way more generic than Violet Chimera. And the last one is Mad Dragon, because Mad Dragon covers those wacky matchups that don't have a specific attribute or something, but they might be able to do it to have the correct materials on the field if they use their extra deck. So, yep, that's the deck. This is probably the first out of many MR5 decks I'm going to show you. I think for all the hyped decks like DDDs, Synchrons, these decks are hyped because people remember how they used to be, but people forget that there are other decks, like those rank 4 spam decks outside of Lunalights, that actually get a huge boost from MR5 and might actually be a decent rogue pick, like this one. So if you have any ideas of which decks would you like to see for MR5, comment down below what you want us to do. Anything is pretty much doable. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, and we'll see you next time.